And we are live.
Great, thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm Senator Jim Dill, Chair of the IFW Joint Standing Committee, and I want to welcome everybody here. And I'll go through a few things before we introduce the committee and start our session this morning. We do have two bills this morning to hear. I will chair the first one, and then Representative Landry will chair the second one. This is an electronic meeting, so please bear with us. We do make glitches, and we're still trying to get all those worked out. Things are getting smoother as we go along. It is live streamed on YouTube, and make sure that when you go to speak, you turn your mic on, and when you're not speaking, please have your mic off because there can be excess background noise. It is available afterwards, soon afterwards, probably the next day, you'll be able to see this on YouTube and in other places. Make sure your name is displayed the way you'd like it to be, or it should be, so that when I go to recognize you, I know who you are by your name, and certainly committee members, if you can, put your representative or senator in front of your name so people know that you're the committee members. And the chat box on the side, let's just keep that to some technical information, like if you have a website address or something like that, or a phone number to put down, anything of substance, please make sure that we talk about that online. We will, the process is going to be that we'll hear from the sponsor and any other sponsors or legislators wishing to testify on the given bill. Then I'll go to the department, and then we'll go to other folks that are wishing to testify. You are going to be limited to 3 minutes. And I just actually have a little kitchen timer that I'm going to try out today and see if that will work. So we stated at 3 minutes, and when you hear the timer go off, that also means that I'll be pushing the button probably to mute you. So just be aware of that. And I'll probably take them right in order as I look at them. Most folks today that are testifying for the bills. And let's see if there's anything else that I need to say. Yes, unfortunately, Representative Landry and I have to be the background police, that we do have to look and see that everything behind you and on your screen is appropriate for our meetings. And if not, we will ask you to reposition your camera, or maybe have to turn off the video while you continue to testify. And with that, remember that only committee members can ask questions. And with that, I'm going to go through and have the folks introduce themselves. I'm going to go right in order that I see them on my screen. So first is Representative John Martin.
Good morning. I'm obviously John Martin, House District 151, and from Allagash to Fort Kent down to Oxbow and Route 11.
Thank you. Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Representative Peter Lyford, District 129, which is Clifton, Eddington, Holden, North Broad, and Lindsay.
Thank you. Senator Black.
Good morning. Senator Black, representing Senate District number 17, which is all of Franklin County and 4 towns in Kennebec County.
Representative Mason.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Rick Mason, District 56 of Lisbon.
And Senator Curry.
Morning, Mr. Chair. I'm Chip Curry. I represent Senate District 11, which includes the 26 rural, coastal, and island communities of Waldo County.
And next on the committee is Representative Neto. We cannot hear you, Representative. Representative Neto.
Right, I'm still,
yep.
Yeah, I'm still having a little bit of issues. Good morning. I'm Kathy Neto, Representative Kathy Neto from Winslow, and I also cover a portion of Benton. Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Landry.
Good morning, Scott Landry. I represent District 113 in Farmington and New Sharon.
Thank you. Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Good morning. My name is Danny Martin, representing House 150, located in northern Worcester County.
Thank you. Representative Ordway.
Good morning. I'm Lester Ordway. I represent District 23, which is most of the town of Standish.
Great. Did I see that Representative Hepler is here? I don't see her on the screen though.
She's probably had class.
No, I thought I saw her, but I did not actually see her. But Representative Alley is in the waiting room. I'm bringing him in now.
Okay, Representative Alley is coming in from the waiting room. There he is. Good morning, Representative Alley. Would you introduce yourself, please?
He needs to unmute.
Representative Alley, you're muted.
Good enough. How's that?
Yeah, I can hear you now. I can't see you, but I can hear you.
6 1, half dozen the other. Yes, this is Robert Alley down Jonesboro area, District 138. And I'm here this morning to speak to you guys. You guys, and I'll listen to you. How's that?
That sounds great. Thank you. And I guess with that, that should be, yeah, there we go. We see you now. That should be everybody. Our clerk is Linda LaCroix, and you've heard me conversing with her. She's the one that will try to keep Representative Landry and I straight this morning. And our analyst is Rachel Olson. So with that, I think we'll go right into our first hearing, which is LD 184, an act to minimize the propagation of invasive aquatic plants. And to speak on that and introduce it is the sponsor, Representative Reisman.
Can you folks hear me okay?
We can, thank you.
Great, thank you. Good morning, Senator Dill and Representative Landry and other distinguished members of the Committee on Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. Special side note saying hi to Danny Martin, who's my former chair in state and local government. It's good to see you. I am Representative Walter Reisman from Harrison, and I represent House District 69, which is Bridgeton, Harrison, and Denmark. And I am speaking today as the lead sponsor presenting LD 184, an act to minimize the propagation of invasive aquatic plants. I believe we can agree that we are here today because we are all concerned about the future of our great state, the environment, our natural resources, as well as the prosperity and well-being of our families now and for the future generations. Our common goal could read, we believe in the preservation of the way life should be. As elected representatives, we have the responsibility of balancing a variety of needs, including our environment, economic, and societal bases. Because of the very nature of the governmental processes, many issues are channeled through very defined silos of authority. This is not to say this is a fatal flaw of democracy, but it can be a challenge to create effective and thoughtful public policy. This bill shows our commitment to lake water quality and continues our role as a national leader and steward of our environment. We are fortunate to have an abundance of high-quality clean water in our lakes and water bodies. As a matter of fact, Maine's rating of water quality for our lakes is 91%, as compared to 29% nationally. It is quite a legacy which started 20 years ago in the 119th legislature, and it's our duty to take responsible measures to ensure its future, as well as other natural resources available to us. Maine continues to become more attractive each year for recreational opportunities and economic investment relative to our lakes. Last year alone, camping activity showed a stunning increase of over 20% or more, despite COVID's negative effect on the economy. Our quality of life, relatively inexpensive costs of recreation, and affordable housing opportunities are attracting more and more permanent and part-time residents. Home sales in 2020 were reported being up 31% year over year in November of 2020. All of these factors present a bright economic future for our state. However, There are dangerous side effects to be addressed when considering these successes in our environmental future. Increased uses of our lakes for boating, swimming, and fishing will put increased pressure on maintaining our lakes' integrity. Issues such as overcrowding, water clarity, pollution, and water quality all need careful attention. The purpose of this bill is to take another step to ensure we do as much as possible to protect and maintain this natural resource from degradation, in this case, from invasive aquatic plants. As the number of visitors to Maine from away has grown, so too has the number of Maine elects affected by this threat. It is reported that recreational use of our lakes is greater than 12 million users each year. Say that again. It's reported that the recreational use of our lakes is greater than 12 million users each year. The state's courtesy boat inspection program inspected over 85,000 boats last year and reported of those boat owners who disclosed their previous water bodies from being out of state, 60% of those water bodies had some combination of invasive plants or animals. This brings the chance of introducing a foreign species when a moving vessel coming from contaminated water body is moved to a different location. The plants can become lodged externally on a boat, but also could be present in ballast tanks and bilges if not drained. So what are we dealing with? Well, we have new terms in our environmental lexicons, names such as the spiny water flea and zebra mussel, among others. Funny names, but not so funny invasive results. These species, which originate from outside the state, can easily establish themselves in local waters. They proliferate quickly and can cause great damage to our indigenous environment. Some can cause physical harm to fish and other animals, while other species can choke off the food supply to the rest of the food web. Left unchecked, we can be left with environmental issues such as algae blooms, fish kill, lower drinking water quality and water clarity, decreasing oxygen levels in a water body, and higher water temperatures can be detrimental to indigenous fish stock. From there, you can have a negative effect on the local economy in the form of lower property values, a negative effect on tourism, and possible loss of businesses and jobs. Lakes associations and other stewards of protecting our lakes have done an outstanding job in education, mitigating the spread of some invasive species, and monitoring the quality of our lake water. I want to thank them for their hard work and dedication to the way Maine life should be. Now, we need to take a step forward, which this bill is attempting to address. LD 184, also known as the pull the plug law, requires the draining of certain components of a vessel, trailer, or other equipment when removing the vessel from an inland water body. It primarily includes anything that holds water, such as bilges and ballast tanks. This means any components that have a removable drain plug must be drained before transporting the vessel. Taking this precaution will prevent the inadvertent transfer of waterborne contaminants. Excluded are fixed drain plugs, such as those found on pontoon boats, the pontoons on pontoon boats. I have submitted a committee amendment which clarifies that air holding compartments on pontoon boats are not considered water holding equipment and are not considered removable. The plugs are not considered removable in the case of the normal course of draining a boat. In conclusion, I hope that you will agree that this bill is a common sense, low cost approach to further ensure our commitment to environmentally protecting our lakes. It will provide benefits now and into the future for protections of this natural resource and is paramount for our state's environment, economy, and its people. I am available to answer questions at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Riley. Any questions? All right, seeing none, it appears that Representative, and I hope I get your name somewhat right, Hassenfuss.
You nailed it. Thank you. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and the distinguished members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. My name is Tavis Hassenfuss, and I represent House District 81 in the communities of Reedfield, Winthrop, and part of Monmouth. I'm here for you this morning to testify in support of LD 184. I want you to take a minute and think of your favorite Maine lake. It's easy for me. It's the lake I grew up on and go to every year in the summer, spend a lot of time on, and I'm sure each of you have that lake in mind. Think about it for a minute. And now imagine it's covered in milfoil or water chestnut. And if you don't know what these look like, some of the written testimony, there will be pictures and you can see. And just imagine if that happened to your lake, how that would make you feel and how detrimental it would be to the community that that lake supports. This bill has the potential to prevent that from happening to your lake. And this committee should think long and hard about the best ways to help prevent that from happening to your lake, to my lake, to everybody's lake. Unfortunately, here in my district, in Anapescook Lake, variable leaf milfoil was found in 2018. And through community fundraising and some state applications, there's been over $250,000 spent in attempting to remove it. We're doing well, but it may never go away. Once it's here, in large part, it's here to stay. And the best way to prevent new infestations is to keep them from happening in the first place. And this bill is a very common sense, small ask to help prevent this from happening to Maine lakes. It doesn't take long to drain your boat, to empty the plugs, to remove anything that has water. I've been boating my entire life and it takes about 10 minutes, super easy to do. And it has the potential to save Maine lakes. And if it saves even one lake, it is entirely worth it. Now, I've submitted my written testimony to you. I don't feel the need to read that, but please go through it. It outlines some of the issues that my district has with this, and it outlines how important it is for our Maine economy and for our Maine's future to make sure that we maintain the clean lakes. Maine has an incredible natural resource in its lakes. And some of those numbers Representative Reisman presented before you speak for themselves and are outstanding, in that we need to continue this forever. Like, this is Maine and we don't want to lose it. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and please take a look at my written testimony. And it is very important for this district to maintain healthy, clean lakes for our economy, for our property owners, and for just everyday citizens who want to go down and, refresh themselves with a paddle or a swim. So please consider that when you're working through this bill. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative. Are there any questions? Again, thank you. Seeing no questions. Are there any other co-sponsors or legislators that wish to speak on the bill? Seeing none, again, thank you both. Next is Francis Brodigan from the department. And I see he's starting to show up in my lower corner here. Go ahead when you're ready.
Good morning. I looks like I'm unmuted. I can't see myself, but maybe you folks can see me.
No, we can't see you yet, but we can hear you fine.
There we go. Well, good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. I'm Francis Brodigam, Fisheries Director at the Department of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife, speaking on behalf of the department in opposition to LD 184. The proposed legislation strives to reduce the introduction of invasive aquatic plants to waters of the state by requiring the removal and opening of drain plugs, bailers, valves, and other water holding devices on a vessel to drain water prior to transporting the watercraft. These actions would be required when removing a vessel from a water. This law enforcement approach is why the department opposes the bill. We strongly encourage more of an educational program at the onset. Preventing the introduction of invasive aquatic organisms, including invertebrates, fish pathogens, fish, as well as plants that threaten the ecology of Maine waters remains an important issue for our agency. One that is also shared by our other NGO partners, as well as the Department of Environmental Protection. Both agencies, in fact, have discussed both regulatory and non-regulatory approaches to promote the National Clean, Drain, Dry campaign that was initiated by the Association of Fish and Wildlife Agencies as a platform to create increased public awareness and prevention. Promoting clean, drain, dry strategies increases the opportunity to create the dry conditions that will actually kill invasive aquatic organisms that may be present, consistent with the intent of this bill. Some states appear to have advanced laws to require actions that promote clean, drain, dry, while others appear to have embraced messaging through more of an education and outreach campaign. Maine is fortunate to have relatively few invasive plant infestations and is also blessed with the last stronghold of native brook trout in the eastern United States, justifying continued investments to prevent new infestations. Perhaps the greatest concern regarding new infestations results from boats visiting Maine, which pose a significantly greater threat due to the diversity and abundance of invasive aquatic organisms that are much more prevalent outside the state of Maine. Furthermore, where Maine is a popular vacation destination, the risk from visiting boaters is elevated due to the high volume of traffic that's seasonally entering Maine. While the department supports the intent of the bill and is very interested in advancing a clean, drain, dry program in Maine, we would encourage using a non-regulatory, non-enforcement opportunity to create that awareness. If a new law is supported by this committee, the department would welcome the opportunity to address some of the language and enforcement concerns in the bill that may result in unintended consequences, including increased risks from non-resident visiting boaters draining their water into Maine lakes, water that may have been derived from waters outside the state of Maine, as well as some enforcement challenges. For example, it'll be important to clarify the intent of the bill requiring enforcement action. It appears the bill would require opening devices to allow water to drain, as well as draining the vessel so it is dry. The authority for the warden service to search boats, including live wells and other enclosed areas, may not support full compliance. This bill would benefit from additional discussion to not only address enforcement challenges and compliance expectations, but also to ensure that required actions will not further increase threats from non-resident boats. Notwithstanding these reservations, the department supports efforts to increase public awareness through promotion of clean, drain, dry strategies as a positive step to reduce new infestations of invasive aquatic organisms in Maine waters. I'm happy to answer any questions at this time or at the work session, and I also believe Colonel Dan Scott is with us to address any enforcement questions that may come up.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions from anyone? Lots of questions. First is Representative Lyford.
Thank you, Senator Dill. Francis, I've seen a lot of signage at different lakes. Is that signage available to a town through the department?
Yeah, I think a lot of the signage that you may be seeing, some of that is developed by the Department of Environmental Protection. We also have some signage more relating to introductions of fish, troubled by the bucketful that we post on many of our boat access sites. The short answer is yes. If there's an interest in providing that awareness and that outreach, it's available.
Thank you.
Next is Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Francis, I note you spoke very well regarding the enforcement issue. And I noticed a couple of things on the bill. This has an emergency clause, an emergency preamble, and no penalty clause for enforcement actions. So I wonder if Colonel Dan Scott is available and if he could respond to what would need to be done to this bill if in fact we move forward regarding the enforcement issue.
I'm bringing Dan in now.
Okay.
Morning.
Well, I'll let this go this time, but since he didn't testify, this should be a question, Danny, Representative Martin, we probably should keep for work session, but since we've already asked him, go ahead.
Clearly, Representative Martin, we would have to attach some type of a penalty to it. I didn't read the actual bill that it was attached to, the section in the law. I did notice that there was no penalty attached if it is its own section. Our biggest concern from the law enforcement side, whether it's civil or criminal, really has to do with the fact that this, in order to enforce this law, would require two constitutional interactions with boaters at boat landings. The first being when the boat leaves the boat landing, which is required of the law, we'd have to have articulable suspicion to stop the particular vessel or motor vehicle in order to, and that's a Fourth Amendment seizure. And additionally, in order to search the boat to see if the plugs are in, if there was any water, that's also a Fourth Amendment search. So similar to how my counterpart Francis testified, we are in full support of the idea of pull the plug or clean, drain, dry, or whatever you want to call it. But we just really think that an educational approach to this is the best approach rather than a law enforcement posture. We try to focus on intentional violators, and there's really no benefit to someone to not pull their plugs. I really think it's just the lack of people's knowledge of when it is appropriate to do it and where it's appropriate to do it.
Thank you, Colonel.
Are there any other questions for the Colonel while we have him up here? All right. Next is Representative Hepler, and I noticed, Representative, you're also co-sponsor. Did you want to testify on that? I thought I asked, but maybe I didn't. No, you good? Okay.
No, I'm good, but I do have a question. And Mr. Brodigan, you mentioned the out-of-state boaters. How is that currently handled?
Specifically regarding,
yeah.
I'm sorry, specifically regarding what?
Making sure those boats do not bring invasive plants in.
So the Department of Environmental Protection, which really provides more of a focused, concerted effort on managing introductions of invasive plants, the funding that's received through the sale of lake and river protection stickers is used in a number of different ways. One of the ways that funding is allocated is by providing support for courtesy boat inspections. So municipalities, lake associations can apply for funding to staff boat launches that may be in their local area of jurisdiction. And so the same approach that is used to address concerns with moving invasive aquatic plants within the state is also used to address concerns with folks coming from outside to our state.
Representative Martin. Mason, excuse me.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Is the Colonel still there?
He
I can bring him back.
We'll bring
in.
him back. Yep, since I said he could.
Thank you. Well, this may, maybe Francis can answer this, but I'm curious. Is this a blatant thing that people are doing? They just don't care, or is there a lot of summons, I would say, or I mean, I can't help but believe that people see the milfoil and the things that are going on in our lake. I mean, is it that blatant that they just don't care?
No, I believe that it's mostly a lack of understanding and a lack of knowledge. We've seen much more compliance and understanding over the last 6 or 7 years, where ourselves and the DEP and a whole network of invasive plant inspection volunteers are stationed across the state. They inspect boats before they go into the water and when they come out, and they educate boaters and provide written literature on it. Initially, we encountered many more violations in the early years of the milfoil law, but now usually it's just failure to obtain the necessary sticker, and that has to do with a cost that somebody doesn't want to spend if they're coming from out of state on the actual inspection sticker. But as far as instances where people are transporting invasive plants around, some of the volunteer folks find them at boat launches, but not nearly at the rate that we did, say 10 years ago. There's, like, as I mentioned earlier, there's really no benefit to the boater to move water around in their boat. Sooner or later, they're going to have to drain it. I really think it's just a lack of knowledge of where and when is the best place to do that, whether they do it as they leave the launch or at their house, or maybe at a specific place on the boat launch that we provide where it's safe to keep it out of the surface water.
I know we've talked about this in committees in past, but there is literature given at the town office when they get their sticker, and there is literature given to them, correct?
Sure. And our staff, we inspect about 20,000 boats a year, and we also provide information around invasive aquatic plants to boaters as well. That's part of some of that funding from DEP goes to the Maine Warden Service, and our staff during their general boat patrols do inspect boats and do pass on general educational information to boaters.
Okay. Thank you, Colonel. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
You're welcome. Thank you both. Any more questions? All right, I don't see any. Okay, so the next three folks to testify will be Don Kleiner, Mary Jewett, and Susan Gallo. But before we get to them, should they're being let in, we have some introductions to do. And Representative Hepler.
Hi, I'm Allison Hepler. Oh, thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm Allison Hepler. I represent House District 53, which includes the towns of Aroustic, Georgetown, Phippsburg, Woolwich, where I live, Dresden, and part of Richmond. Thank you.
Representative Ordway.
I already did.
Oh, sorry. Sorry about that.
Ontario.
Yeah. Yes, Representative Terrio. He was here. I've lost him again, I guess. Okay, is there anyone else on the committee that I've missed? All right, then we will go back to our testimony. And I do not see, do I see Don Kleiner here? He's next on my list.
I do believe I brought him in, but nope. Okay. He's on his way in now. He's on his way in now.
Okay. Good morning, Mr. Kleiner. You're on.
Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, distinguished members of the committee, and actually Linda, thank you. One of the things I wanted to mention was, before I start, and I'm burning my 3 minutes here, forgive me, but it's pretty amazing to me how well you all have adapted to this and how incredibly seamless it seems from the staff side, and I know that could not have been true. I mean, I'm in a variety of hearings in the course of a day, and it's pretty amazing to me how well it actually works. Not to say I don't miss you all in person, but it's working. Thanks. With that, I represent the Maine Professional Guides Association. You all know that I live in Union, representing roughly 1,000 Maine guides. We love a common sense solution to a problem, and this one's on its face seems elegant. I will raise, though, some issues that I think this bill presents that are problematic. First off, how are we going to deal with a bait bucket? I don't see provision in here to allow for transportation of live bait. And as someone who's, this is personal at this point, but my live well is in fact below the decks of my boat, and in fact has an aerator, and that's how I move my bait. More frequently salt water, which wouldn't be affected, but I'm not alone. And there are a number of guides who would use live bait, particularly in the middle of the summer. So that provision needs to somehow be made in this if you decide to move forward. There was a similar bill 2 years ago, if I remember correctly. And I think the committee wrestled with similar issues and was unable to resolve them and defeated that bill. I fear that this simple, elegant solution is not so elegant. With that, I'll stop. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Are there any questions for Mr. Kleiner? Seeing none. Next is Mary Jewett.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. My name is Mary Jewett. I work for the Lakes Environmental Association in Bridgeton. I also, in the summer, my primary job is to run our courtesy boat inspector program, but I also train all the inspectors for the state of Maine through a contract with the Department of Environmental Protection. So I've been doing that for several years. So I've been a part of this community for a long time. And I will say, in regards to our inspectors, we've been pushing the clean, drain, dry message for several years. And what we've noticed is a lot of people are receptive to the message, but they don't know it. And they aren't doing the work themselves. They don't know where their boat plugs are. So in regards to, let's just keep educating people, I think there comes a point where our inspectors saying, this is the law, you have to do this, will maybe be more effective than we would really like you to do this because of this. I think people respond to, you have to do this. We'll get through to more people. But I just want to say that this bill, the name of the bill, and we've talked a little bit about the other organisms, doesn't really illustrate the most important impact. While reducing the spread of invasive plants is important, we already have a law that prohibits the movement of aquatic plants. It's already illegal to transport aquatic plants in the state of Maine. What worries me and should worry everyone are the invasive species that we don't have, like zebra mussels and spiny water flea, which could have a catastrophic effect on our lakes. Maine is unique and beautiful, and we are really privileged to live here. Many other states, like the giants, California, Texas, to our small neighbors, New Hampshire, Vermont, they all have laws on the books that require people to pull their drain plugs between bodies of water. And while their laws kind of vary in scope, they all have one thing in common. Those states enacted those rules after those invasive animals were already in their lakes. So it was kind of reactionary. And this bill presents an opportunity to be proactive in the fight against invasive species. Instead of waiting until we have found zebra mussels or Asian clams in Sebago Lake or Cobbessy or Moosehead, which are very popular lakes, especially with out-of-state boaters, and then scrambling to contain those infestations, passing this bill would prevent this from happening. So there is no silver bullet when it comes to lake protection. No one law will magically erase all the threats, but we can always take steps in the right direction. And I believe that LD 184 is the right direction to take. So thank you. I am happy to try and answer any questions that you might have.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Next up is Susan Gallo, followed by Adam Fortier-Brown, Rob Brown, and Eliza Donahue. So with that, we will go to Susan Gallo.
Hey, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Chair Dill, Chair Landry, and distinguished members of the committee. My name is Susan Gallo, and I'm the Executive Director of Maine Lakes, a nonprofit organization that works to protect Maine's lakes for all who use them. We support this bill strongly for a number of reasons, which are all outlined in my written testimony that I submitted, thanks to Linda, to all of you. So I'm going to stick to countering a few of the points that I've heard this morning in my short 3 minutes. So the argument about enforcement, I would strongly counter that and raise the point that many voting laws are not enforceable or enforced in any meaningful way, and that's okay. The existence of the law still matters very much. A great example for that is the lead sinker law that passed a few years ago, or many years ago, and was updated more recently. That bill prohibits the use of lead sinkers, an ounce or less. The argument was made that that's, it's not enforceable. Are we going to dump out anglers' tackle boxes? Are we going to arrest little kids for fishing with a lead sinker? And our answer was no. The point was made, well, just do education, tell people how important it is. We did that, and that helps for sure, but there is nothing better than doing education and saying, hey, this is really important for this reason, but guess what? It's also a law. That resonates with people, it matters, and it helps education efforts, helps elevate those education and outreach efforts. So we saw it work with the lead sinker effort, and I think it will work with this. With this issue, we have excellent education and outreach programming led in large part by Mary, who you just heard from. We have hundreds and hundreds of people out there inspecting boats, sharing the message, hey, you should really drain, and it's really important. Adding that you should really drain, it's the law in Maine, tells voters that, wow, this is an important issue. It's so important that the legislature has taken the time to think it through and made it a law. So is it going to be enforceable? No. Is the no wake, no wake in the 200-foot zone enforceable? Yes, if you have a warden on site, but that's a law that we have on the books. We do our best to share the message. Most people pay attention to it and they follow the law, even though there's no warden watching them. They do it because it's a law, and that's what we count on in this world. We count on people to elevate things that about which there have been made laws. So I'd urge you to just be cautious about using that as a reason to kill this bill. I'd also urge you to work out the kinks and the tweaks in terms of definitions, bait buckets, all of those issues. I think they can, I urge you all to work those out in the committee and in your discussions. I
If
think
you can
this
wrap
can
up,
be done.
please.
Okay, this is a law in a lot of other states, and I think we need it in Maine too. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Ms. Gallo? Seeing none, thank you. Next is Adam Fortier-Brown.
Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the committee for giving us the opportunity to speak on this bill. My name's Adam, and I grew up in Randolph, Maine. Have been in the boating industry all my life. Grew up on and around Cobbessy Lake. Like a representative said earlier today, everyone has a favorite waterway in Maine, and I'm no different. I'm here on behalf of the Marine Retailers Association of the Americas and the National Marine Manufacturers Association, who collectively represent boat builders and boat dealers in North America. In Maine, recreational boating is a really big deal. It provides over 14,000 jobs. It supports over 600 businesses and contributes nearly $3 billion to the state's economy. We're the #1 pastime in the state for outdoor recreation, which collectively makes up about 5% of the state's GDP. Aquatic invasive species pose one of the greatest and most significant threats to the health of Maine's inland waterways, fisheries, ecosystems, and local economies which depend on them. And across the United States, it costs nearly $120 billion every year, either through lost revenue, through enforcement and cleaning up programs and whatnot. This bill makes serious steps in the right direction to better address this threat by implementing common sense and effective measures to mitigate the spread of invasive species between bodies of water and preserving the important environmental and ecological diversity for healthy fisheries that our community depends on, and so many communities across the state depend on. Our only apprehension to this bill is just asking for more clarity on defining what specific boat plugs would be classified for this. So we would ask that the committee clarify language and support an amendment to clearly outline exemption for drain plugs for pontoon boat tubes. It sounds strange, but many pontoon boats have air pressure valves or a type of drain plug on the stern of the boat where it isn't ever really meant to bring in water. If your pontoon's bringing in water, you're having a bad day. It's only meant to be removed if the pontoon is punctured already and they're meant to drain the water and repair the pontoon. We would want to ensure that these tubes where water is not meant to get in there already would not need to be removed every single time. Most compliance for this would be extremely difficult, where most of these aren't meant to be easily removed. So we would just want to have that exempt. In summary, we support this bill. We support the spirit of this bill. We think that this is our industry and our community supports the passage of this with that clarifying language, and think that this is a needed and necessary step to move the Maine's economy forward and to preserve the economies and the ecological diversity in Maine's waterways. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none, next is Rob Brown.
Thank you for the invitation, Representative Dill and Representative Landry and the other committee members. My name is Rob Brown. I own Clark Marine in Manchester, Maine. I've been on the board of directors with the Friends of the Cobbessy Watershed for some 20 years now, since its inception. I don't know, I've never really tallied exactly what we've donated to that group, as well as the Mesolonsky group, but they all have the same mission, and that's to slow the flow, so to speak. I am in a accordance with this. Anything that I think we could do that would help slow that flow, and especially as something to me seems just something as easy to do as not transporting this around. The only one thing that I've heard right today that I don't 100% agree with was that it's thought that most of this invasive is brought from away. Well, it might have at one point, but it's here now. And we each year see it continue to spread. There are, we had in our area, Lake Annabessacook had an infestation. And we knew, even with everything that's been done through the DEP and through private organizations to try to eradicate it, in some places they've been able to do that, but not there. And it has migrated down through Cobbessy Stream and whatnot now, and it's in Cobbessy at this point, I understand. So it's just a matter of it spreading a little bit more. This just seems like, I don't know of any of my customers who are not concerned about water quality. The landowners we serve also that have waterfront property are concerned with valuations. And where our population here in Manchester around the Cobsey area, it easily doubles during the summer. And if this were to really, you know, take foot, and I think it would have detrimental effects on tourism in our area. So I think anything that can be done, even as small as pulling your drain plug, I can't see too many people that are really going to be overly objectionable if they really understand. And added in that education, would you really get somebody to stand up and say, nope, don't agree with it, and I'd just soon see the stuff move? Doesn't matter to me at all. I can't see anybody saying that. So once again, Rob Brown with Clark Marine, and thank you for having this opportunity to address this committee.
Senator, you're muted.
Mr. Chair, you're muted.
Whoops. Thank you. Next is Eliza Donahue, followed by Tony Pide. So Eliza.
Thank you. Thanks, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the committee. I'm Eliza Donahue. I represent Maine Audubon. I don't want to repeat all that has been said before me about concerns over environmental health, water quality. That's what brings Maine Audubon to this bill and why we support it. I think I wanted to just share briefly, you know, I was really compelled by Ms. Jewett's testimony from the Lakes Environmental Association. You know, we've seen firsthand as an organization the work that Maine's nonprofits, lake associations, the Maine Department of Environmental Protection through their courtesy boat inspection program and their lake and river protection sticker program. They're working really hard to get out this message about limiting or eliminating the spread of invasive species, but their capacity is really limited. And we see this bill as an opportunity to bring some much needed capacity to a really important effort. I'm really pleased to see folks from the Marine Retailers Association. Sounds like there's some really worthy amendments that could be made to this bill to make it workable for the most amount of people. And I really encourage the committee to support what feels to me like a very common sense bill. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any questions? Seeing none. Next up is Tony Pide, if I'm pronouncing that correctly.
It's Tony PA, but that's
PA.
most people pronounce it Pide, so that's totally fine. Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of the Inland Fisheries and Wildlife Committee. Thank you so much for this opportunity. I work for Friends of the Cobbossee Watershed, which Rob Brown had mentioned. He's been on our board for a long time. And we work to protect the 28 lakes, ponds, and streams in the Cobbossee watershed. You can see behind me in my background, this is Anabassacook Lake, which Representative Hassenfuss had mentioned earlier. There's been an infestation there. It was found in 2014, and we've been spending a lot of time and money to try to remove that infestation. So, you know, I'm not going to repeat a lot of what has already been said, and I've submitted some written testimony. I just kind of wanted to touch on a few things. Similar to Mary Jewett, I sort of come at this from a little bit of a different perspective, seeing that our organization runs a courtesy boat inspection program that manages 10 public boat launches. And we have a big invasive aquatic plants program that hires folks during the summer to survey the lakes, ponds, and streams to look for any new infestations of invasives. And then we also manage the infestations once they get into the lakes. So I come at it from a little bit of a different perspective. I've worked in both the Cobbossee watershed and the Belgrade Lakes watershed. I've been doing this for about 15 years now, and I've been in lakes all over the state of Maine. So, my perspective really is that, I've been on the ground working with these plants and trying to manage these infestations. I've been, I've talked with boaters during inspections, and some people are very compliant when it comes to, checking their boats, allowing a boat inspector to check their boats. Some are not. And I think that's where we really need to take that extra step, to take a common sense law like LD 184, which we fully support, to try to do anything that we can to prevent these invasive aquatic species from getting into our lakes. Our lakes are very vulnerable. There's a lot of great habitat out there. There's tons of access around the state. They're well loved and well used, especially in the Cobbossee watershed. So a law like LD 184 is really just a small step that we can take to try to prevent something that, it's inexpensive, it's easy, it can save hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars. Since 2003, the Friends has spent about $1.2 million on invasive aquatic plant prevention, early detection, and removal. So this is just a very small step that can be taken to try to prevent an infestation from occurring. Our existing laws to prohibit the transfer of aquatic plants is important, but like Mary Jewett was saying, this really gets at some of those other critters that we don't yet have here in Maine. So we fully support it. I'm happy to answer any questions. Like I said, I've submitted some written testimony, and just thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you. Are there any questions? All right, seeing none. Again, thank you all. Linda, that's all I have on my list.
That's all I have on mine, Senator.
Okay. With that, I will close the hearing on LD 184, and I'll turn it over to Representative Landry.
Thank you very much, Senator Dill. Thank you all for your testimonies. I will now open the hearing on LD, 199, an act to amend certain fish and wildlife laws and related provisions. And we'd like to first hear from the sponsor, Senator Dill.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Representative Landry and distinguished members of the IFW committee. I am Senator Jim Dill. I represent Northern Penobscot County, and I'm here to present LD 199. And this bill is a department bill, and I am just sponsoring it for them. So I'll just briefly go through it, and then I will let the department speak to it. And basically what the bill does, it defines upland game species, and it then puts into place that the department can set bag limits, daily bag limits, and sets fines for exceeding bag limits, etc. And it also allows the department to enforce laws prohibiting the abuse of other people's property, who while they're, hunting, fishing, that type of thing, mostly hunting in this case. And it also gives penalties about the revocation of hunting license convicted of night hunting, provides also for revocation of license permits for people who are convicted of destroying, defacing property, damaging a property posting sign. And it also mentions about it prohibits domestic violence offenders and certain nonviolent juvenile offenders from obtaining or possessing licenses through the department. And there are a few other things that the bill does. It's kind of an overall bill to look at various and sundry points from the department. So with that, I will start because, as I say, it will be much easier for the department to go through what they want to say about this. And, I try to answer any questions, but it certainly makes sense if you hold your questions for the department. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Dill. I don't see Representative Stearns here, so turn it over to Commissioner Camuso.
Thank you, Representative Landry and Senator Dill. I do believe Colonel Scott will be presenting this bill to the committee.
Thank you.
Good morning, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, and members of Inland Fisheries and Wildlife. I am Dan Scott, Colonel of the Maine Warden Service, speaking on behalf of the department in support of LD 199. These are the department proposals for modification to Title 12 laws which relate to fish and wildlife enforcement that bring simplification, add consistency, and alignment with current practices. As Senator Dill had mentioned, it's kind of a conglomeration of a number of things, almost similar to an omnibus bill, if you will. It's fairly extensive and a little bit complex. I'll take my time and go down through it, and we can take questions along the way or at the end, or however you folks want to handle it. In my testimony, I'll refer to, like, the first one is sections 1, 8, and 9, because in numerous parts of the bill, there's statutes that affect each other, and so we tried to group them together. So in sections 1, 8, and 9, that's referring to the actual LD, they all relate to each other. They provide a definition of upland game species. Upland game species are identified and listed in department rule, but there is no official definition. This seeks to define upland game species in statute. This also creates a sliding penalty scale for each upland game species over a person's limit. For instance, a person who kills 10 snowshoe hare over their limit should be subject to a different penalty than a person who exceeds their limit by 1. The sliding penalty scale is the approach utilized for a person who caught and exceeded their fish limit currently in Title 12. So that's how that law came about. It's not even so much about the definition, but we had an individual who killed 68 snowshoe hares a few years ago over their limit. They received the same penalty. I think it was in Representative Lightford's area, received the same penalty as somebody who went 1 over their limit. So this bill seeks to make it a different penalty for each one that you go over. But in doing so, we refer to upland game, so we had to define that. Section 2 and 5 relate to each other. This strengthens the prohibition of abuse of another person's property by removing reference to certain stated activities such as hunting, fishing, or trapping to allow Warden Service to enforce the law against persons who abuse another person's property, but who may not be involved in the activities. For example, mushroom harvesters or antler collectors are just a couple of examples of activities that could create a landowner and land user conflict, but the user isn't involved in an activity our agency regulates. There are also adjustments in statute made to reflect a mandatory license or permit suspension if someone is convicted of this violation. So currently, if you're engaged in hunting or fishing and you tear down a posted sign or trample crops or tear open a fence or a gate or leave it open, your license can be suspended and it's a violation of law. We're looking to take out the terms hunting, fishing, trapping, and just make it anytime you're out recreating on somebody else's land. If you engage in those activities, it would be a violation of law. Sections 3, 12, and 13 all relate to each other. The proposal requires all edible meat and the head from bear, deer, and moose to be presented for registration with evidence of sex. It also clarifies that bear, deer, and moose may be dismembered for ease of transportation and allows a hunter to leave certain unneeded parts in the woods. It clarifies that the viscera of a wild turkey may be removed prior to registration. The current law, which speaks to removing animals from the woods, especially big game animals, isn't completely clear on the fact that you can quarter up an animal to get it out of the woods. And that's actually our preferred method, especially for moose. And we have videos that train people to do that in order to avoid spoilage and help folks get it out. But this clarifies that if it's a deer or a bear, if you shoot a large bear and in September, there's a good chance it could spoil if you can't get it out on your own. So it clarifies the law, allows you to quarter up the animal and remove it and leave things such as the rib cage, the pelvis, the hide in the woods if you like. Section 4 clarifies that a person's hunting license will be revoked if the person is convicted of night hunting while in possession of a thermal imaging device. This makes it clear that thermal imaging cameras are a form of night vision and are an aggravating factor. If a person is convicted of night hunting, it will be a license suspension of 5 years to be consistent with other forms of night vision while night hunting. So thermal imaging is identifies heat seeking, a forward-looking infrared, if you would. And if you're, it's an aggravating factor if you're caught night hunting and are in possession of those devices. Section 6, currently there is a law which makes it illegal for a person prohibited from possessing firearms under Title 15, Section 393 to possess a firearms hunting license. A recent 2015 domestic violence law has made it a state violation to possess a firearm for 5 years by anyone who is convicted of domestic violence after October of 2015. This proposal would bring our Title 12 license prohibition in line with the new Title 15 language. Essentially, if you are prohibited from possessing firearms due to a DV convictions or nonviolent juvenile convictions, you are also prohibited from possessing a firearms license for the period in which you are prohibited from possessing the firearms. The next group of sections 7, 14, 15, 16, and 17 also are all related to each other. They clarify that bear fat, which is not attached to the bear meat, can legally be bought and sold for personal use without a hide dealer's license. It further clarifies that bear fat can be bought and sold commercially under the authority of a hide dealer's license. Numerous people have contacted us and asked to utilize bear fat for various purposes, both personally and commercially, and have wondered if the fat is regulated or if they have to be a hide dealer to sell it. This answers questions to those. This provides answers to those questions and makes it consistent with uses of other parts of big game animals. We've had folks contact us about making shoe polish out of bear fat, making candles out of bear fat, using bear fat to make cutting boards, and Title 12 didn't speak to it. Yet Title 12 speaks to many other animal parts which can be bought and sold. So we just, this is trying to bring bear fat in line with other parts of wild animals for commercial use. Section 10, this makes a clarification that a person may not take or possess reptiles or amphibians from the wild for export, sale, or commercial purposes. The current word "and" is used, so both actions, take and possess, need to be proven as an element of the crime. It should read "or" so that a person can be charged with either the taking or the possessing of reptiles and amphibians from the wild when they are trying to export or sell them for commercial purposes. Section 11, this clarifies the time to register a bear, deer, moose, or wild turkey. Current language has been construed to mean that the time limit of 18 hours only begins once the animal is brought home or to a place of storage. The interpretation and enforcement of this law has always been that the time limit begins once the animal is killed and reduced to the hunter's possession. So if you shoot a deer, once you find it in the woods and place your tag on it, that's when the 18-hour begins. There's been some questions the last few years regarding the current law states 18 hours after it's brought home or in a place of storage. So that would allow somebody to leave an animal in the woods permanently and not have to worry about registering the animal. Sections 18 and 19, these sections relate to each other. The special hide dealer's license permits a person who butchers deer and moose to commercially sell the hides and heads of deer and moose which are butchered at their business. This proposal extends this authorization to selling bear heads and hides as well, which are butchered at their facility. The department is also seeking to extend this permit to the entire year, rather than being valid only from August 31st to December 31st. This would allow the license holder to butcher a roadkill or other legally possessed deer, bear, or moose and sell the respective hide legally throughout the year. And Section 20, this amends the definition of owner for the purpose of registration of a snowmobile, watercraft, and ATV to make the definitions consistent for all three types of recreational vehicles. State of Maine does not title recreational vehicles or watercraft. This will address the right to possession for recreational vehicles titled in another state and address an issue of someone selling a recreational vehicle or a new owner being able to operate it on an old registration and not having to re-register it. So I know that was a lot of information. I'm we'll be glad to take any questions now or at the work session. Thank you.
Thank you, Colonel Scott. Are there any questions? I'm sure everybody remembered everything that he said, so let's go ahead, Representative Lyford.
Yes, I did. That was very interesting. Could you just go over one more time the big game one and maybe reference into proving the sex? Did I understand that correctly?
Sure. Let me look at it here. So the current law speaks to how you can transport, what needs to be done to transport big game out of the woods. And the current law speaks to deer, bear, moose, and wild turkey need to be presented in their entirety for registration. And then there's a bunch of exceptions to that go on to say you can leave the viscera, basically the guts, and the rib cage in the woods. And then it goes on to clarify that certain parts of a moose can also be left in the woods. Well, our goal is to simplify that and make it clear to the public that if you take out, we want you to take out all the edible meat. That's the responsible thing to do. But those parts that aren't used can be left in the woods, like the hide. If you choose to not use the hide, you can leave that in the woods. The lower legs, basically from the elbow down, when somebody quarters a moose, they typically will cut off that lower leg so you don't have to carry it out. It clarifies the fact that when it says the rib cage can be left, it doesn't only speak to the ribs themselves, it's the spine and the pelvis. And our goal is if somebody needs to dismember an animal in order to get it out of the woods because it's too big for them to handle it, they basically take the quarters, all the edible meat, the back straps, the inner loins, the neck meat, rib meat, etc. But they can leave the rib cage and some of the legs, the lower legs and so forth in the woods. It also requires the head to come out because most of our registration processes require knowing what sex the animal was. So that's the portion of sex. If you bring the head out, clearly on a deer or a moose, you can determine sex because of the antlers. On a bear, you would have to leave some evidence of sex attached to one of the quarters. So it's really just trying to clarify what many people currently do, and that if if you shoot a big buck a long ways into the woods or a big bear, you can more easily get it out, and you don't have to bring it out whole.
Perfect. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Ordway.
Thanks, Rep. Landry. Colonel, just a thought I have in my head. When you say that it would allow a butcher to sell a hide of maybe a roadkill or something like that, has there been any thought to adding in allowing a nuisance trap beaver pelt to be sold?
Okay, so there are two different situations. One, so currently in order to deal in raw or untanned animal hides or parts of wildlife, certain parts of wildlife, if it's the animal that you personally killed and legally registered, you can sell most portions of that. If I'm going to commercially deal with it, if I'm going to buy that hide from you and resell it, I need a hide dealer's license. Well, there's a certain group of people, butchers, so to speak, that, during the fall, they handle a lot of raw hides from deer, bear, and moose that they butcher. So we had in law for many years a special hide dealer's license. So you didn't have to have a hide dealer's license, which was required all year long. It just while you're engaged in butchering, you have this stack or pile of deer or bear or moose hides there. You could sell them. That permit, that hide dealer's license, was really only valid from August till December because that's when most big game animals are processed. However, those same butchers often have roadkill animals brought to them to be butchered in other times of the year. And, they've requested, well, can I sell that hide? Because my license is no longer valid. So we want to make it possible for them to go ahead and sell that hide. And the easiest way to do that is to extend that special hide dealer's license to butchers for the entire year. As far as the use and sale of nuisance animals that are captured by ADC agents, that's that's really part of policy that we have of regarding whether or not an ADC agent can take possession of wildlife that's in our nuisance wildlife policy. And there are avenues to permit that to happen. Because if you are a licensed trapper, you can, there's already laws in the books, whether you legally take it through ADC work or recreational trapping, allows you to sell the hide of the animals that you catch. But the specifics around ADC are more of a department policy than they are a statute. So that is absolutely possible for that to happen.
Thank you, Colonel Scott. Senator Curry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colonel Scott, I have a question regarding Section 2 that strikes the hunting, fishing, trapping context. Is there any is there a way that still limits it to outdoor recreation situations? Could this law be applied to visiting a neighbor in the city and leaving their front gate open and their dog gets out?
That's not our intent. I have to read it more closely to see if that's the situation, but this is really a landowner relations law that really comes from just quickly reading it, using the person, leave open any gate or bar on another person's land. I assume it could be extended to that, but that's clearly not the intent of it. That's, our folks who enforce Title 12, game wardens, Marine Patrol officers, that really isn't our jurisdiction, and I'd be surprised if we were called to those type of situations. However, if you went behind my house and left the gate open and a bunch of cows got out, that's different.
Yeah.
Really, that was changed because we've had people tear down posted signs who aren't engaged in the act of hunting very often so that they can go and hunt there later on, and there's no posted signs up. But because they committed that act while they weren't engaged in hunting, we really can't implement any of our license revocation processes or pursue the criminal violations of using somebody else's property.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions for the department? Seeing none, I will close the hearing on this LD, and thank you all.
Excuse me, Representative Landry, there are two other people ready to testify on this, Don Kleiner and Eliza Donahue. I can bring those in now.
I couldn't see him at all. Oh. Mr. Kleiner.
Thank you, Representative Landry. Senator Dill, distinguished members of the committee, Don Kleiner, still representing the Maine Professional Guides Association. I am delighted to see the seriousness that this committee takes this bill, because the legislative group I report to at the Maine Professional Guides Association spent an inordinate amount of time going over this bill line by line. Very similar questions. At the end of the day, we support everything in this bill and like what we see, and actually credit to the department, just this once, for doing a really thorough job in cleaning up some places in the statute that need to be clarified. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions, but it's pretty technical and there's a lot of stuff in here.
Thank you, Mr. Kleiner. Ms. Donahue.
Thanks. Thank you, Senator Dill, Representative Landry, members of the committee. Still Eliza Donahue, still representing Maine Audubon. We're here to comment on a very, very, very narrow portion of the bill, specifically Section 1, which would define upland game species. We're recommending that spruce grouse be removed from the proposed definition. This stood out to us because there's no hunting season for spruce grouse, even though every other species that is listed within the proposed definition for upland game, there is a season of some length for those. You know, we've talked to the department. We totally understand that the intention is not for there to become a season for spruce grouse. However, we're concerned that including that species within the definition could lead to some confusion. You know, those who are seeking to understand and learn about Maine's hunting laws. You know, spruce grouse is a species that we pay quite a bit of attention to. You know, they're projected to lose a lot of their habitat, you know, somewhere between 50 and 85% due to climate change, even under the most conservative scenarios. You know, this is a species that was once very widespread in Maine, but has, you know, precipitously declined. And, you know, I think there was a hunting season sometime early in the, I think it was 1915 to 1940. But state biologists, you know, recommended that because of their precipitous decline, that there no longer be a season. So, like I said, that's our only comment, just recommending the removal of that species. Again, understand that it's hardly the department's intent, but want to make sure that our statutes are as clear as possible. And I think removing spruce grouse from that proposed definition would help with that clarity. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'm sure that will come up in work session and with the department. Representative Danny Martin.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Question for Eliza. Eliza, when your recommendation during work session, I'm assuming that you'll be present, and are you going to be proposing or offering a proposed amendment or clarification?
My proposed amendment would be just to strike it.
Strike it out. Great, thank you.
But I'd be happy to join the work session, but also have a lot of confidence. You know, I talked to the department about this a fair amount before this hearing, and you know, I feel like we're on the same page, and are, you know, seek to, you know, always find more clarity in our statute. So a lot of confidence in the committee and the department, but wanted to share our concerns.
Great, thank you.
Very good, thank you. Is there anybody else who has anything to say or any questions? Linda, is there anybody hidden in the queue that I can't see?
No, that's everyone, Representative.
Representative Lightfoot has a question.
Oh, yeah, sorry about that. Representative Lightfoot.
You muted, Representative Lightfoot.
Thank you, Linda. Representative Landry, just want to clarify, we're not meeting Monday and we've changed to 10 o'clock on the following Wednesday.
Yes, I believe that's the schedule.
And the only other thing is in getting ready to tap in here, I didn't see which bills we were going to look at. So maybe for Wednesday, we can be sure that's on there.
Yes, I'm sure Linda will get that out to us.
Thank you.
Yes, the schedules go out on Thursday for the following week.
Yeah, I just didn't see it on the schedule. That's all. I must have missed it. It's my fault. Thank you, Linda. Anyway.
Is there anything else that has to come before us this morning? Seeing that, I will close the testimony on this Bill 199 and look for a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn by Representative Ordway.
Second.
Seconded by Representative Mason. Thank you all.
Thank you. Bye.